We just celebrated 20 years of John Cena in WWE a few weeks ago. Next Monday, Raw is coming to Madison Square Garden, and we are going to be celebrating 20 years of Rey Mysterio in WWE. Same as John Cena, it's 20 years to the day that he debuted on SmackDown against Chavo Guerrero. The calendar worked out very well for WWE with these anniversaries. 2002 was actually a hell of a year for arrivals on WWE television. Brock Lesnar debuted, Randy Orton debuted, Batista debuted, although back then he was the Deacon. He was the Deacon Batista. John Cena debuted, Rey Mysterio debuted. So a lot of big names. And in terms of all-time GOATs, Rey is up there. I mean, just for his importance to smaller wrestlers, but the things that he could do in the ring, I had never seen anybody like him before. Yeah, I know he was already in ECW, he already had a name, but it was the exposure that he got working on TNT all of those years on Nitro that exposed him to just a much wider audience, and especially if you were somebody who didn't watch Lucha Libre, imagine seeing this guy for the first time in his physical prime, flying around the ring like he did. Imagine that and not being impressed. I can't fathom it. This guy was unbelievable. But I also understand why you can't really call him the greatest luchador of all time. Some people get very upset about that. I definitely think he's in the conversation, but yes, he did not have the cultural impact of an El Santo or even a Mil Mascaras. Even I know how big of a legend El Santo and Mil Mascaras was, Blue Demon. I mean, you don't have to be a big Lucha fan to know just how huge these guys were back in their day. And Rey did not become a major star working in Mexico. He became a major star working in the US. So it feels weird to call him the greatest luchador of all time, or even one of the greatest luchadors of all time. But I mean, how can you not call him one of the? I mean, how can you not have him high up on the list? And to still be doing it today, 33 years after his first match, the style that he works, it's not like he's a very mat-based technical wrestler or a brawler who just punches and kicks. I mean, look at what he does in the ring. 33 years ago, he had his very first match. And look at the way he works, even with the bad knees, to still be out there at 47 years old, moving around the way that he does. It's why he is one of the greatest of all time. But he was in the ring with his son on Monday, face-to-face, with the Judgment Day. 1 week after the Judgment Day attacked him and his son in the back and left them for dead. They were kind enough to stand there in the middle of the ring and let them talk. It's ridiculous. Rey looked very, very dumb for not going after these two. Damian Priest said that Rey is done. He's got nothing left to offer his son. They're still offering Dominic a spot in the Judgment Day. A spot in a dying faction. It does not exactly sound like a very enticing offer to me. I mean, if this was the Four Horsemen, if this was the Hart Foundation, if this was DX, if this was the early NWO or something like that, I would say leave the old man behind and take the offer. But for the Judgment Day, Dominic would be better off joining Toxic Attraction. Balor said not only is Rey a bad leader, he is a bad father. And then finally Rey and Dom attacked. What followed was what the announcer said was a first-time ever meeting between Finn Balor and Rey Mysterio. I don't remember the two of them ever having a match before, so I'll take them at their word on that, and it's too bad that this wasn't a bigger deal than it was. I know that Rey and even Balor, they're not as big of a, or they're not treated anyway as big of a star as they were many years ago, but they're still two pretty big names on the roster. I think more should have been made about this being, their first ever match. It was just an unannounced match on TV with commercials. We had two matches that were announced. Bobby Lashley was supposed to defend his U.S. title in an open challenge, and Riddle was supposed to wrestle Theory. And then late in the day, the show obviously got rewritten, and those matches suddenly weren't advertised anymore. But they gave away Balor and Mysterio unannounced. At least Balor won. The Judgment Day needs to start racking up some wins before Edge comes back and just destroys them all. And then something odd happened in the main event. It was Lashley and Riddle against Seth Rollins and Austin Theory. Randomly, in the middle of the match, they played Dolph Ziggler's music, and he walked to the... I felt like I was watching a cutscene in 2K22, where the screen goes black and all of a sudden some random person comes walking out. Here comes Dolph Ziggler to the ring. He takes a seat in front of the announcers to watch the rest of the match. Corey Graves excitedly said, "He's back!" And I was puzzled by this because I could have sworn that I just saw Dolph Ziggler in the Last Chance qualifier for the Money in the Bank match, that Battle Royal that they did, 2 weeks ago. So unless that was Dolph's evil twin, I'm not sure what the fuck Corey was talking about. Riddle was setting up later on for the RKO when Rollins pulled Theory out to safety until Lashley speared Rollins through the barricade by the timekeeper's area. Theory got back in the ring. He tries to use the ropes for leverage on a pin attempt. Ziggler stands up and he pushes Theory's feet off the ropes, which caused a distraction, which then led to Riddle hitting the RKO and pinning Austin Theory. As is tradition with Money in the Bank. They think that you have the briefcase, and so therefore you can just eat defeat on television every week and it doesn't matter. It feels like Theory has taken more losses since winning the briefcase than he did in the months leading up to it. He lost on Monday and he lost again on Friday. After the match, Ziggler got in the ring, he super kicked Theory, and then he stood over him with his arm raised high as they played his music. So Dolph Ziggler is a babyface now. According to Meltzer, this is part of WWE's plan to give Theory a chance to work with somebody who can help elevate his game in the ring and give him some great matches, because that's the role that Dolph Ziggler has now settled into. That is now his job. Ziggler is never going to be the featured one. Not on the main roster, maybe in NXT, but he's not going to be the featured one. Theory, though, will be. We know Theory is going to be the guy. We know Theory is going to be pushed as the guy and pushed as a future world champion. You know, Ziggler had that run a few months ago as the NXT champion, and they used him in a similar way. He was working with Braun Breaker, and then they put the title match on Raw instead of doing it on NXT. That was when Braun won the belt back. Nobody gave a shit because hardly anybody watches NXT. But using Ziggler to work with the younger talents to help elevate them is probably, honestly, the best use of Dolph Ziggler at this stage. Going forward, it's going to be guys like Ziggler and Miz who play that role because they don't have people like Chris Jericho anymore. They don't have Kurt Angle. They don't have Kane or any of the other veterans that they would use and plug into roles like this. A lot of them are gone. They're retired or they're working somewhere else. The veterans now are Dolph Ziggler and The Miz and Sheamus. They're the vets now. There's just one problem. If Theory is going to work an extended program with Dolph Ziggler, I don't know how extended it'll be, but if he's going to work a program with Dolph, I mean, I don't really mind it, except that we're now 2 weeks away from SummerSlam. And all Theory is doing is going around and teasing that he's going to cash in on Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar at the end of SummerSlam. Theory is not cashing in and winning anything if he's in the middle of a feud with Dolph Ziggler. So either it's a quick 2-week thing, or Theory is not walking out of Nashville as the world champion. If he wins back the US title from Lashley, that would make more sense for him to be working with Ziggler. But I would not take the US title away from Bobby Lashley. So I think Theory tries to cash in, or teases it, but Dolph Ziggler is there to stop him and foil his plans. And that would allow Theory to hold on to the briefcase a little while longer too. I don't really see a need for him to rush into cashing in when he's got a year. All these people, they're in such a fucking rush. Hold on to it for a while. I mean, I know it's annoying to have to carry that thing around, but my God, he's got a year. I think it would be too early to put those belts on him anyway. And if they feud, Ziggler can try to take the briefcase away from Theory. All right, if he stops Theory from cashing in at SummerSlam, they could have a match for the briefcase at some point. Ziggler can talk about, cashing in Money in the Bank in 2013 to win the World Heavyweight title and how to this day it's the biggest moment of his career, the peak of his career. Which is kind of sad, but it is. I mean, it's the peak of his career. And he sees young punks now like Theory coming in, passing him by, trying to take his spot. That used to be me. It should have been me, right? Something like that. Although I guess that's not a very babyface promo. But, you know, he needs that contract back. That's the story, I think. He needs that contract back to complete his redemption arc. So if they're going to tell this story, that's the way that I would tell it.